able to exercise at the same time.
Well, they have good legs now.
Yeah.
No? So think of it as a health
actually, I was thinking.
a health project and a cash earning project
and
at
a
the same
livelihood
time.
project for them. Yeah, that's great.
So this is what I'm saying. Beyond handouts, can we come together either as a program, maybe even outside consultant? That money is not just bam, wham, bang,
one time, big time.
One time, big time,
Yeah.
no? But the responsibility really of using that money, if you're especially in charge of CSR, to last longer than your job at CSR. Meaning, if you're gonna spend 20 million pesos in your career as a CSR
head,
wouldn't you have the responsibility to make sure that money or that impact lasts longer than your career, and this takes a lot of things because people want things done right away. But the point is that money could have had a multiplier effect, which is that 1 peso could have not just been 1 minus 1 is 0, but could it be 1 times 1 times 5 people? Could it grow? And at the same time, in this generation that funds are becoming scarcer and scarcer, can we affect more and more people with the limited budget that we have? And this is the vision of social enterprise, which is, can we build this kind of solution and long-lasting projects ahead of time? When I say ahead of time, that means
you don't cram it.
Well,
I mean, you really
there will be more.
There
will be more problems in the future. Can we address that early on now? That way we can have a stable, peaceful, and of course, socially productive society.
Yeah, actually, I was about to ask the same thing. What other projects do you envision for this? I mean, the kind of business you're in. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas, but in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, what can you foresee as maybe the project that people would need the most, or in terms of?
Well, right now, for 2010, we're doing, I think, what is the most ambitious project for the My Shelter. We're now working on what is called design against the elements, which is we see a critical problem in this kind of low-income housing. The just being built, right? Why is this important without any kind of change? Why is this damaging without any kind of changes? Because when it floods, everybody in that house becomes dependent on society, the other parts of society, which is we have to feed them. If there's no electricity, there's no water.
There's no everything, all the basic needs in life.
So when 80% of Metro Manila goes underwater, there is this manifestation of climate change. Or basically, this ondoy won't happen once, but there will be a pattern of ondoys in the future.
It's just a start.
Right. So what happens when this manifestation starts happening? Will we be responsible for feeding these people built in unsustainable communities? When I say unsustainable, that means
we know already that
that it will get flooded. A flood lifestyle, unless somebody builds a canal, in the next 5 years.
A really good drainage system.
Everybody's saying, oh, we should build, these huge canals, but these are years in the making.
Yeah, it's not
right
6 months.
Yeah, like right here and now. Can we use the billions that we spent post-disaster consumption? Remember, I'm always talking about noodles, the noodle mentality, the bottled water mentality. The candles mentality.
The canned goods mentality.
Everything at the end of the program, which everybody eats and finishes. Not that it's wrong, but can we have spent that billions in concrete designs ahead of time? Could we put that money in a better community design ahead of time? And so this year we're throwing, what is called Design Against the Elements. Basically, it's a global competition to design the next green low-income community. What will it look like if the base of the pyramid lived, not that, it's dark, you need light, it's hot, you need electric fans. I mean, these are consumptive kind of things, which is high energy, and then plus you build them square. I mean, we don't want to have a future of bliss housing around. So we need to modify a 2.0 of low-income housing that will be able to address green living, have light, have water tanks that, when, you can saves water, but at the same time, during emergency, can be used as a water source.
Generator.
Right, or some kind of new kind of electricity that is green, but at the same time, when they're flooded, that they have consistent energy. Instead of individual housing, can there be community halls that can address when you need to have communal, usage.
Yeah, of course.
And so all of that has to be addressed in the future. And so the cityscape, the urbanscape, whereby eco-green living is the goal.
Yeah.
Now we have to be also braced for disaster. How will that, what is the future? And so this global competition is really to look for those solutions that will redesign how we're building for the grassroots. As we're going to be, this rebuilding for thousands upon thousands of, I would call them climate refugees. And that's a proper name.
Yeah.
It's not just displaced low-income community. It's climate refugees.
Yeah, great term.
In the city. How will we address a longer-term solution to it that does not deal with post-disaster?
Because post-disaster, buying all these rubber boats. And
rubber boats and all of that. But you still have to feed them.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a future where we're going to have 1,001 rock concerts. We're going to have 1,001 relief drives. Unless we empower the community to be able to survive these disasters on its own, because it's a world of constancy.
Yeah.
The climate change is constant. We know that there's going to be other undoys. So the point is, how do we build?
Okay, we know that there will be other undoys, but we don't want to face it. A lot of people are very resistant to. You know,
there's what we call the psychology of climate change, which is, the more a community feels empowered to do something about it, the more that it starts doing, projects, community organizing. So, even though you're working in the city, if it floods, the community knows what to do with your family, where to bring them or what to do.
They're not caught off guard.
They're not caught, it can't be a nuclear kind of society anymore where nobody cares. I mean, when 80% of the city sinks, there's traffic jams, there's no way for ambulances to get there. We can't always have the radio stations calling people that need, you have to be braced. It's a world where the people needs to be braced for disaster.
It's like saying that prevention is always better than
cure. And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's much cheaper than the cure. So we want to build this kind of villages that have sustainability built into them. So they don't live their whole lives, the next 3 to 4 months, in evacuation centers. When the storm has passed, maybe their first floor might be flooded, but they can use the rest, surviving as an integrated and a community. Maybe there's food on the roofs. I don't know what it's going to take, but all I know is we cannot build the same way that we did, which is hollow block on hollow block and then color it some bright color. It's really, these communities will sink. We know that we cannot move everything into the Ayala district. We can't move everything into Taguig. There are certain things that cannot be done when things are on such a wild scale.
Of course.
So it's a wild. I call it climate wild.
I know. It's really wild, but it's something that you should really ponder on. People should really think of as early as now.
Right. Unfortunately, we are on the opposite spectrum. We are not a non-polluter when it comes to global, the global impact. But we're the most vulnerable. So we have to face that.
To cure that kind of mentality.
No,
it takes time.
It's something that climate change is certain. Survivability is not. We can't,
It's dependent on how
and we're already, the top 5 when it comes to numbers of property and numbers of deaths. So we have to respect that, we have to move away from another charity concept, which is begging people, like, please let us, please stop your carbon. Make a drastic and deep cut into your carbon, because first world countries will not shut off their economy.
Exactly.
We've seen the last time we begged for, the last time we ever got compensation was World War II with a veteran.
It's a long time ago,
it will never happen. It's just this kind of climate change things, and then the opposite side is when the disaster happens, we're also begging, please give us money. It's such a beggar mentality to beg for people to reduce their carbon. On the opposite side, we're also begging, and we're not doing anything in between. And so what I'm saying is, in the future, we should start organizing to act ahead of time. How can we build systems, designs,
you envision it already, mapping it out.
Or else, the point is, how long before carbon in the air is actually gonna experience, when industrial countries are gonna dump tons and tons of this carbon in the environment. We already have to start respecting the fact that we have to do something for ourselves. Because right now it's always they. They should lower it and they should compensate us.
But if you start with the I.
we should start with the I.
Definitely. So now that we've talked about, all these very, very inspiring and interesting projects, I want to know, like, you've shared a lot of your time, your effort, and your skills, knowledge to people. How do you think others can do